Should you invest in the Trump account or a 529 college savings plan? And for many years, the 529 plan was the go to account for your kids' college savings. But now there's talk of a Trump account when the president signed the One Big Beautiful Bill into law on the 4th of July, and a new type of savings plan that raises some serious questions. But what are the similarities and differences between them? And let's break it all down. First off, let's look at how these two plans are alike because they do share some common ground. And at their core, both the Trump account and the 529 plan are built for the long haul, and they're designed to help our kids save and invest over several decades, letting that money grow for a child's future. And they both encourage steady, disciplined saving for future expenses, even if their specific purposes and rules end up being quite different. Now, here's a nice feature they share, and your money in both types of accounts gets to grow without being taxed each year. And they call this tax deferred growth. So you don't pay taxes on the earnings while the money is just sitting there, quietly compounding over time. And the tax part only comes into play later when the money is actually taken out. Now, neither of these accounts lets you pick individual stocks like you might in a regular investment account. Instead, both offer a menu of professionally managed portfolios. And for 529s, these are usually what they call age based portfolios or a list of index funds that you can choose from. And for Trump accounts, the investment options are even more limited. And there's one that's just one US equity index fund. It doesn't even say anything about bonds. On the Big Beautiful Bill, it just says to invest in any mutual fund or exchange traded fund or ETF that tracks the returns of a qualified index. And that does not use leverage, does not have annual fees and expenses of more than 0.1% of the balance of the investment in the fund, and meets such criteria approved by the Secretary of Treasury. And a qualified index means the S&P 500 stock market index or any other index that is comprised of equity investments in primary United States companies. It cannot be any industry or sector specific index, but may include an index based on market capitalization. And if I had to guess, ETFs like VOO or VTI should be available to the Trump account. Index funds like VFIAX or VTSAX could be the other ones that would be available within the Trump account as well. All right, so that's how they're similar, but where they really start to diverge and where we need to pay close attention to is in their differences. And this is where you start to see which tool might fit your family's unique situation. You can always schedule a 60-minute consultation with me by visiting firesession.com/consultation. First, let's talk about how it is taxed. For Trump accounts, they are more like a traditional IRA, not a Roth when it comes to taxes on withdrawals. So, what does that mean? Well, even though you put money in that you've already paid taxes on, when you take it out later, the earnings portion is actually counted as regular taxable income. You're not going to get taxed again on your contributions. Distributions can begin when the child turns 18, but if you pull funds out before then, or for things that are not considered qualified expenses, like certain college costs or a first time home purchases of up to $10,000 in your lifetime, you could face a 10% penalty on those earnings on top of paying income tax. So while it offers some flexibility, it definitely comes with a tax bill later on. For the 529 plan, here's where it truly shines, and especially if you're focused on education. And these accounts offer completely tax-free withdrawals when you use them for qualified education expenses. And let me tell you, the list of qualified expenses had gotten so much bigger, larger, thanks to the One Big Beautiful Bill and other recent laws. It now includes not just tuition, but also room and board, books, computers, certain apprenticeship programs, dual enrollment programs, courses for professional credentials, standardizing testing fees, and even up to $10,000 in student loan repayments over their lifetime. And if you take money out for something that is not on that list, you'll pay income tax on the earnings and a 10% penalty. But honestly, with the new option to roll unused 529 into your kid's Roth IRA, that con is much less of a worry than it used to be. And you can check out that video I did on the 529 to Roth IRA rollover, link in the description below. Second, let's talk about eligibility. And to be eligible for the Trump account, qualifying children will need to be under 18 years old, a US citizen or resident, and have a social security number provided that at least one parent has a valid social security number. And parents can contribute up to $5,000 a year until the child turns 18, and employers can even chip in up to $2,500 annually, which counts towards that $5,000 limit. A very important point here is that no one over the age of 18 can receive contributions to a Trump account. So think of this Trump account as opening a traditional IRA for your children under the age of 18 with a $5,000 contribution limit. And as far as the $1,000 seed money goes, they're only for US citizens born between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028. So if your child was born outside that small window, this option is not going to be available to them. And if a child is in that age window and has a social security number and a US citizen, the federal government will automatically put $1,000 seed contributions to get them started. And this is where the 529 is much more open, and there are no age limits for the person who benefits from the account. It can be your child, your grandchild, a niece or nephew, or even yourself. And contributions can come from just about anyone: parents, grandparents, your friends, other relatives, or anybody else, right? The plans also allow for very generous contribution limits. You can even put in a big chunk of money all at once, and sometimes up to 5 years worth of gifts, which is up to $95,000 per person as of 2025 towards the 529 plan. And if you're married, couples can combine their gift exclusions and allow for a $190,000 lump sum contribution in 2025. So if you've got some extra cash laying around, like $190,000, you can really front load the 529 college savings and take advantage of the rule of 72 to figure out how long it takes to double your 529 balance. And third, let's talk about tax breaks and deductions. And when you put money into a Trump account, you don't get a tax deduction for it on your federal taxes or state income taxes. However, if an employer contributes, that $2,500 is not counted as income for the employee, which is a nice perk. But as we talked about, even though the money grows without being taxed each year, all the earnings you pull out are taxed as regular income when you take them out. And there's no Roth style tax-free withdrawal here for everything. Now, if you contribute to the 529 plan, you don't get a federal tax deduction, but here's a big advantage for you. Over 30 states actually offer a state level tax deduction or credit just for contributing, especially if you use your home state's plan. And as I said, when you take money out for qualified educational expenses, it is completely tax-free at both the federal level and usually the state level too. And that's a huge benefit right there, letting more of your money go directly to education. Fourth, let's talk about flexibility. Now, these Trump accounts do offer broader flexibility in how the money can be used after the beneficiary turns 18, compared to the strict education focus of a 529. The money can technically be used for any purpose, but here's the thing. All withdrawals are taxed as ordinary income unless they meet very specific IRS exceptions, like paying for higher education or a first-time home purchase of up to $10,000 in a lifetime. So that flexibility often comes with a tax bill. As for the money from a 529 plan, it must be used for qualified education expenses to keep its tax-free status. However, thanks to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and other laws, the definition of qualified expenses has grown. And this now includes a much wider range of K-12 expenses of up to $20,000 annually starting in 2026. Curriculum materials, books, online educational materials, tutoring, therapies for students with disabilities, fees for dual enrollment programs, and even standardized test fees. It also covers trade schools, professional education, and apprenticeship programs. So while it's still specifically for education, it is far more flexible than it used to be. And fifth, let's talk about who owns the account and who's in control. Again, any parent can open a Trump account for their child, and it's most likely going to have the parent as the custodian of the account. Then once that child turns 18, they get full control of it. At the time I'm recording this video, the Trump account is expected to become available next July. The details of how the accounts will be opened and funded remain to be seen. If I had to guess, I would think a broker like Fidelity, Schwab, and Vanguard, and other brokers and credit unions would have a Trump account available in 2026. And as far as how the government funds that $1,000, it's probably going to be a direct deposit from the Treasury Department to the account. Again, this is just my guess, but I'll keep you guys updated. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't done already. With a 529 plan, it's different. It's a huge source of peace of mind knowing you, as the account owner, maintain complete control of the funds, and your child or grandchild doesn't automatically get access to a big chunk of cash the moment they turn 18. You call the shots, you decide when and how the money is used. Plus, you can even change who the beneficiary is if your child no longer needs the college fund. And 6, how do the Trump account and the 529 plan affect financial aid? Now, this is a pretty significant point for families who are hoping for some financial assistance with college costs. Trump accounts are likely going to be considered a student asset under the FAFSA, or Free Application for Federal Student Aid rules. And this means that a much higher percentage of its value, or up to 20%, could count against their financial aid eligibility. And this could lead to a noticeable drop in the amount of need-based federal aid that they receive. Now, when a 529 plan is owned by a parent, which is usually the case, it's treated as a parental asset. For federal financial aid calculations, only a small percentage of its value, at a maximum rate of 5.64%, is counted. So if you have $10,000 in a parent-owned 529 plan, it might reduce a student's aid award by a maximum of $564. And this helps keep more aid on the table for families seeking assistance, which is a big deal for many Americans. And if you're asking what I would do if I were in your shoes right now, I'm going to get both accounts for my teenage daughter, even though she's not going to get the $1,000 seed money. And the 529 plan is still the most powerful, flexible, and proven tool for education savings. It's available right now and backed by clear, significant tax advantages. And I mean tax deferred growth and tax free withdrawals for qualified education costs. As for the Trump account, while interesting and offering that initial government funded head start, it is still very new and pretty narrowly limited as far as the seed money goes, and its funds are taxable upon withdrawal like a traditional IRA. The control goes directly to the child at 18, and the financial aid implications are harsher. And on top of that, the seed money only applies to children born between 2025 and 2028. So if you have a baby born between 2025 and 2028, I would absolutely open this account and get that $1,000 from the Treasury Department, because that $1,000 in 60 years with an 8% average annual return is going to be over $100,000. And if you contribute $5,000 a year for 18 years with an 8% average annual return, that's going to be $191,247 by the time your baby turns 18. If your child keeps that money where it is without touching it for the next 42 years until they turn 60, that money in their Trump account could turn into $4.85 million. So here's my 2 cents, plain and simple. Open a 529 plan now because it's available. And when the Trump account becomes available and you have a baby born between 2025 and 2029, you should open it and get that $1,000 in seed money. And I'll make a tutorial video about it when the account becomes available. And I will still open maybe a Trump account anyway, even if you don't have babies between 2025 and 2029. And if you have kids under the age of 18, why not just open it and take it to go, and start funding your 529 every month, even if it's just a little bit. Believe me, even small contributions grow significantly with time, and thanks to the power of compound interest. And this has been another beast of a video, and I hope you got a lot out of it.